Sri Lanka Navy and Indian Coast Guard curtail fire in a cargo ship off Sri Lankan coast.
First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
Prime Minister Wickremesinghe says no bill has been drafted to sell Hambantota port to China. No major changes at the Sirikotha meeting today. Russia objects to draft UN resolution on Syria's deadly chemical attack. Good evening, this is your news at 9. I'm Indivri Amwatha. We take a look at your top stories tonight. Fire broke out in an Egypt-bound container vessel in the international waters off Colombo yesterday. Sri Lanka Air Force, Sri Lanka Ports Authority, Indian Coast Guard and the Indian Navy are in joint operation to douse the fire. Sri Lanka Navy said although they have managed to control the spread of the fire through the vessel MSC Daniella, they are yet unable to confirm the safety of the vessel. The cause of the fire is unknown.
The container vessel MSC Daniella was voyaging in the international waters 120 nautical miles off Colombo yesterday morning when the fire broke out in several of its containers. The vessel was en route to Egypt from Singapore bearing the flag of Panama. At the time fire broke out, the 360-meter-long vessel had containers weighing 151,000 tons. 21 crew members were on board the vessel at the time of the accident and all members are reported safe. Upon receiving the distress call from the vessel yesterday, Sri Lanka Navy dispatched two fast attack crafts P-436 and P-412 to assist Sri Lanka Port Authority tugs douse the fire and escort the vessel. Sri Lanka Navy's two fast attack crafts had managed to escort the vessel up to 33 nautical miles off the Colombo lighthouse last evening. Two tugs of the Sri Lanka Port Authority, Ravana and Mahaveva, also joined the firefighting effort, but the initial efforts went in vain due to the intensity of flames. Sri Lanka Navy had later requested assistance from the Indian High Commission as Indian Coast Guard vessel Shur was in Colombo on a goodwill visit. The firefighting missions was also joined by the Sri Lanka Navy Sagara vessel patrolling in the southern seas. However, the fire extinguishing efforts were still threatened and the Indian Navy dispatched two of their ships, Darshak and Gariel, to the location. Three more fast attack crafts of Sri Lanka were then dispatched to help combat the fire and for immediate evacuation of crew members. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Air Force also joined the mission, providing a Bell 220 helicopter. The Indian Coast Guard extended its support further by deploying their Chetak helicopter to the distress response team. Sri Lanka Navy says the distressed vessel is currently docked at 13 nautical miles off Colombo.
There is an all-out effort to extinguish the fire which has broke out on board MSC Daniella, which is a container carrier. Our efforts are there with the key focus on ensuring the safety of the crew. We are putting our entire effort in containing the fire. So these efforts are going on continuously with Sri Lanka Navy deploying SLS Sagara, which has the capability and capacity to address these kinds of situations. So what I can say for the time being is fire is being contained, but every effort is done to totally douse out the fire. But I cannot say like when this would happen, but it is time-consuming effort.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says Sri Lanka will have greater benefit through the proposed Economic and Technology Cooperation Agreement. Addressing a ceremony to launch his political biography, the Prime Minister assured that Sri Lankans have nothing to fear about ETCA.
Ranil Wickremesinghe, a political biography compiled by Dinesh Veerakkodi, was launched yesterday at BMICH under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena. India Congress MP and former Union Minister Shashi Tharoor delivered the guest speech on the challenges of leadership in Asia.
On the one hand, we're eager to work with Sri Lanka on an assortment of development infrastructure projects, including power sector cooperation, such as the LNG plant in Sampur, and overall development commitments made by India add up to $2.6 billion. Indian investments in Sri Lanka today are valued at $1 billion, and there's another $1 billion already in the pipeline. We are committed to your future.
But we see for ourselves and in the Indian Ocean the opportunity of it regaining its position in the world as one of the richest regions. Our wealth certainly helped the Industrial Revolution. Our wealth helped the Europe to establish itself. It is now for us who have the presence for living in this time to ensure that we can rebuild the Indian Ocean. So I feel that there is much more scope for us to work together with India, strengthen and build on a present agreement into an economic and technology cooperation agreement. There's nothing for Sri Lankans to fear. It's not that our markets will be taken over by Indians. I think it will be a question of win-win for both sides. And for those in the Sri Lankan industry, we have a big program. The countries of Bay of Bengal all have a future where not $1 trillion economy, but something much larger can operate.
In Parliament today, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said that no bill has been drafted to sell the Hambantota port to a Chinese company. However, he revealed that an agreement regarding the Hambantota port was signed between former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government and the government of the People's Republic of China. Prime Minister Wickremesinghe then went on to say that once the port has been handed over, the country's debt burden would be reduced by 1,100 million rupees. He also said that the government had taken the initiation to remove the handing over of the port on lease, which could have led it to be owned by China Harbour. Cabinet spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne denies the spread of influenza H1N1 in Sri Lanka. Addressing the weekly cabinet media briefing in Colombo today, the minister also refuted media reports that claimed of a travel ban imposed on Sri Lanka by Qatar.
Cabinet spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne said 3,548 samples of suspected H1N1 cases were sent to the Medical Research Institute so far. In March, 1,548 samples were sent to the MRI, out of which 258 samples were proven H1N1 positive.
Spreading and epidemic is two different things, no? There is no epidemic situation in the country. There is a spread, yes, correct.
Meanwhile, the Foreign Ministry of Qatar urged Qatari nationals not to travel to Sri Lanka due to health reasons. In an advisory to its nationals, the Qatari government, quoting Sri Lankan official authorities, confirmed of a spread of H1N1 in Sri Lanka. Cabinet spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne said that the advisory followed misleading reports by Sri Lankan media.
Meanwhile, several cabinet decisions were taken this week. We take a look at a few of them. Cabinet approval was granted to develop the Colombo city as a cultural hub in South Asia. Approval was granted to a proposal made by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to appoint a committee of senior officials to take necessary actions. 20 national highways will be rehabilitated through domestic funds and using domestic contractors within 3 years. Rehabilitation of 20 highways covering a total length of 5,643,053 kilometers is estimated at a cost of 58 billion rupees. A tunnel construction project will be implemented in Kandy in order to reduce traffic congestion in the Kandy city. The project is estimated at a cost of $252,230 million. Minister of Ports and Shipping Arjuna Ranatunga says that government was able to make changes to the Hambantota Port Agreement in a manner that benefits the country. The minister revealed this when he called on the chief prelates of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters this morning.
After discussions with the chief prelates, the minister spoke to media.
Staff of the Ceylon Electricity Board will engage in a strike starting off at midnight today. Ceylon Electricity Board Employees Union Secretary Ranjan Jailal stated that the strike will be staged following issues relating to a pending wage increase for employees. Furthermore, he said that the workers will refrain from the power stations and office work. Meanwhile, Minister of Power and Renewable Energy Ranjit Siamalapitia said that the ministry is already implementing measures to take action or solve the matter. And Secretary General of Amnesty International Salil Shetty says that the government of Sri Lanka must operationalize the Office for Missing Persons, ensuring that it can operate independently. The visiting Secretary General of Amnesty International said this addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today.
Amnesty International's report, Only Justice Can Heal Our Wounds, was launched by the organization's Secretary General Salil Shetty at a meeting with families of the disappeared in Mannar on Monday.
We are calling now to the government to say that we are running out of time. Our message is the UN Human Rights Council has given you 2 years, so now is the time for action. The government of Sri Lanka must publish a timetable of action for delivering accountability and to stick to it. During my meeting with the Prime Minister, Ranil Wickremesinghe, he promised this, so he should now simply do that. We are also calling on the government to ensure victims are kept at the heart of this process in a transparent way. They must operationalize the Office of Missing Persons, ensuring that it can operate independently and contribute to both discovering the truth for families who have long sought answers. The government must immediately repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which has been the source of so much suffering and created an environment where enforced disappearances flourished.
We take a short break. We'll be back with more news on the other side. Welcome back. The government will implement bus priority lanes across 3 major routes within the next 3 months. Addressing media on future plans for the Western Province, Minister of Megapolis and Western Development Partli Champika Ranawaka said the bus priority lane project, or rather the pilot project implemented earlier in Rajagiriya, proved successful.
On the first day, this was a huge issue, but was under control by the 4th day. The average speed of a bus was earlier 9.5 kilometers per hour, but with project implementation, speed increased up to 31 kilometers per hour. Speeds of cars and motorcycles too increased in the process.
Speaking further, Minister Partli Champika Ranawaka said the government expects to provide new housing facilities for 20,000 families in Colombo slums by the end of next year.
Waste from the National Hospital is dumped into the Bere Lake. Around 1,000 families live adjacent to the Bere Lake and their waste is also dumped into the lake. We are also aware that certain government and non-government organizations dump their waste to the Bere via pipes. Waste management has escalated to a major problem in Sri Lanka. Around 60,000 houses are requested to resettle people living in slums in Colombo. This will cost us over 200 billion rupees. Initially, we thought of selling land to cover this expenditure. But last year, we realized that it was impossible. Our Urban Development Authority cannot accomplish this task alone. The government funds the construction of houses in the northern province, plantation areas as well as rural areas. But they do not fund resettlement of people living in Colombo slums.
The Working Committee of the United National Party convened today at the party headquarters, Srikota. Speaking to media, most UNP members revealed that while several issues had been taken up for discussion, the topic of reshuffling key party portfolios was not discussed. Speaking to media, Minister of State Enterprise Development Kabir Hashim said that development of the Hambantara Industrial Zone and the Hambantara Port project had been taken up for discussion during the meeting. Senior members of UNP, including Media Minister Gayantha Karunatilaka, Deputy Minister of Social Empowerment and Welfare Ranjan Ramanayaka, former Minister Rosie Senanayaka, were present at the committee meeting. In your business segment, we take a look at the stock update for today. Colombo equities jumped for the 7th consecutive session as the all-share price index touched 6,200 levels after surpassing the 100-day moving average for the first time in 6 months. Analysts say the expectations on closure of Hambantota port deal with China and a drop in yields in the recent bond auction fuel the positive sentiments among the investors. We now have the daily market update with Imeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The benchmark all-share price index gained 51.63 points to close at 6,198.32, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 index gained 24.98 points to close at 3,520.46. The turnover was 640.73 million rupees with 18.84 million shares changed in hands in 5,246 trades. The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,726.52 billion rupees. Top 5 gainers of the day were PC House, Blue Diamonds Non-Voting, Blue Diamonds, S&B Leasing and People's Merchant Finance, while the top 5 losers were PC Pharma, Multifinance, Tesagro, EB Creasy and Company and Odell. Today's foreign purchases were 425.74 million rupees and foreign sales were 194.13 million rupees. There were 4 crossings today and the crossings turnover was 110.92 million rupees.
Here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded across other major currencies during the day. We'll be back with your sports stories after this break. Returning from injury, Kusal Perera yesterday steered Sri Lanka to a smashing 6-wicket victory against Bangladesh in the first T20 in the 2-match series with the visitors. Opener Kusal Perera today spoke to media of his ace performance returning to national cricket after a 5-month absence. Yesterday's T20 was played at the R. Premadasa Stadium.
Go. Heads is the call.
Choosing to bat first, Bangladesh began poorly, losing their first wicket in the second ball of the game to a perfect yorker by Lasith Malinga.
First blood Sri Lanka.
Multiple wickets fell in a row and Bangladesh failed to build momentum for a big score. Mozadik Hussain and Mahamadullah scored 30 plus each, putting up a total of 155 on board.
This fielder coming in underneath that one, he's going to get it, he's got it.
With 155 runs to chase, Kusal Perera and skipper Upul Taranga started off strong. Kusal Perera scored a brilliant 77 runs, making a spectacular innings of 9 fours and 1 6.
Push, but safe and...
With the win, Sri Lanka have taken an unaccessible 1-0 lead in the series.
Every day I give a start but never get to finish it. I only score around 20 or 30 runs, so it's neither useful for me nor for the team. I wanted to play until the end of the game. I wanted to finish the match after coming into form.
And in basketball, Argentina basketball icon Andres Nocioni has decided to retire from the sport at the end of the season. Nocioni is one of the several members of the 2004 Athens team to have had a long and successful career with both the national side and various clubs in Europe and the NBA League.
After 21 years in the sport, Argentina power forward Andres Nocioni yesterday announced his retirement from basketball by the end of the current season. Nicknamed El Chapo, the Real Madrid basketball player helped Argentina's golden generation to win a gold medal in Athens and a bronze in Beijing. In 2004, he signed for the Chicago Bulls, where he played 5 NBA seasons. Announcing his retirement at a news conference at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium, Nocioni said the NBA was not his place, but explained the love he felt for Chicago Bulls and the emotion he felt by having Michael Jordan next to him. He also played 2 seasons in Sacramento Kings and 2 for the Philadelphia 76ers. In 2015, Nocioni was named Most Valuable Player of the EuroLeague final after helping Real Madrid lift the trophy. During his career, his strong personality on the court always helped him to be loved by the crowd. Nocioni played down the idea of becoming a coach, but said he was eager to remain linked with basketball.
In your international stories tonight, North Korea has test-fired an intermediate-range ballistic missile, according to US and South Korean officials. The test comes on the eve of a visit by China's President Xi Jinping to the US. However, China denies any connection between the meeting and the launch.
South Korea's defense ministry said that the missile, launched from North Korea's east coast, flew about 60 kilometers before falling into the Sea of Japan. The ballistic missile launch drew swift condemnation, with Japan describing the act as provocative and South Korea calling it a blunt challenge to the UN. Meanwhile, China called for restraint on the issue, and a foreign ministry spokeswoman denied any connection between the launch and tomorrow's meeting between the Chinese and the US presidents. In tomorrow's meeting, US President Donald Trump is expected to raise the issue of North Korea's military and nuclear programs.
And Russia is objecting to a draft resolution on the chemical weapons deaths in northern Syria as the UN Security Council meets in New York. Russian suggestions that civilians were poisoned by rebel weapons on the ground have been widely rejected. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres reiterated that war crimes are being committed in Syria.
At least 72 people, including 20 children, died yesterday after airstrikes hit a rebel-held town in Syria's Idlib province and released toxic fumes widely suggested to be the nerve agent sarin, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The attack sparked a storm of international outrage, with several countries blaming the Syrian government. Russia said that the toxic gas was released from rebel-held ammunition stores on the ground when targeted by Syrian airstrikes. However, these claims have been dismissed, and the UK's Foreign Secretary, a rebel commander and a weapons expert said the evidence implied an attack by Syrian government forces. The United States called for an emergency briefing of the UN Security Council on the attack. However, Russia has opposed a draft resolution on the issue. The attack features foremost and the ongoing EU-brokered conference on Syria in Brussels.
The horrific events of yesterday demonstrate that, unfortunately, war crimes are going on in Syria, that international humanitarian law remains being violated frequently. The Security Council will meet today. We have been asking for accountability in relation to the crimes that are committed.
And 4 soldiers and 2 civilians were killed and 22 were wounded in a suicide attack on a team of census workers and their security escorts in Lahore, Pakistan today. The Pakistani Taliban claimed the bombing, saying that it was an act of revenge upon armed forces. The suicide bomber blew himself up near an army vehicle escorting a team that was carrying out Pakistan's first census in nearly 20 years. And the 11 French presidential candidates faced off amid heated arguments over policies and scandals in a televised election debate yesterday. Far-right frontrunner Marine Le Pen faced stinging attacks over alleged political scandals and her nationalist proposals, which include leaving the European Union. Speaking on security, she evoked angry responses when she alleged that France had become a university for jihadists. In response, centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron accused her of lying and described nationalism as war. Conservative Francois Fillon, who currently holds third place in polls, came under fire over an ongoing job scandal involving his wife. The first round of the French election will be held on the 23rd of this month, while Le Pen and Macron predicted to qualify to the second round. I'll take a short break and be back with your weather forecast. And now we take a look at satellite images for your weather forecast for tomorrow. Showers or thunder showers seem to occur in the western, Sabaragamu, central, northwestern, Uva and southern provinces after the afternoon hours. Fairly heavy falls of over 50 millimeters can be expected in some places of the island. A few showers can be expected in the southern, coastal area during the morning hours. However, humid conditions may remain during the rest of the day. Here's a look at your city-by-city forecast for the next 24 hours. And that wraps up your primetime news for tonight. Log on to www.otherderana.lk for the very latest on local, international sports, weather or entertainment. Before we go, we would like to leave you with a glimpse into the intricate art of Gokkola. In patterns that are subtly simple as well as impossibly complex. Good night. Have a pleasant evening.
Information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana, 24/7.